Hello everyone, Stealthy Shroan here, and today we're taking a look at the Humble Choice Bundle for November 2021. My process for this is I play each game for roughly about an hour, and then I tell you my thoughts on them, and ultimately if they're even worth your time. So this month, Humble decided to reduce the number of games down to 10 instead of the usual 12. Their claim is that this month brought a higher quality of games to the bundle. Are they really though? Please check the timestamps if you want to look at a particular game, and be sure to listen to my final thoughts in the end. Okay, let's get to it. The first game we'll take a look at is Mobius Front 83, which is a tactical turn-based strategy game. Mobius Front is set in a 1983 alternate universe during the Cold War. I didn't get very far with it, but it seems there's some sort of attack happening on American soil that is perceived to be an attack from the Soviet Union or possible Red sympathizers. However, as their Steam description puts it, the player fights an America from an alternate universe that will stop at nothing to seize control of the country's heartland. So, it sounds a bit interesting, I suppose, but is it worth playing gameplay-wise? In the first couple missions I played, I didn't really care for it that much. A lot of the choices were pretty limited as to what I could do with my units. Also, I found that it was rather easy to cheese the enemy using tanks. Keep them out of range of anti-armor units, and you're in the clear. Although this is early game impressions, and presumably there is more strategic depth, such as air support that might throw a wrench in things. One thing I really hated was how I needed to click the move button every time for every single movement. Why couldn't I just right-click where I wanted the unit to go? I don't think I'll be returning to this one. It didn't do enough for me with first impressions to suggest it was anything other than a mediocre game with a setting that I wasn't too interested in. Playing this one reminded me of Battle for Westnoth, which I think is a lot more fun, and it's free to play as well. Wrath, Aeon or Ruin, is an old-school shooter reminiscent of the old Quake or Doom games. Once you start the game, you are thrown right into it with no exposition or any reasoning or indication as to what's going on. As the player steps out into this hub-like area, they'll come across these portals that transport the player to the different levels. I quickly realized I could tackle these levels in any order that I wanted. It didn't seem to matter because the levels would provide you with the drops based on what you already had. So you could find a shotgun in the catacombs, but if you decided to do the swamps first instead, then you could find a shotgun there as well. I really liked that and thought it allowed for a good variety in a playthrough. I'm not sure if there is an optimal way of tackling the levels or if it's just up to whatever the player is feeling at the time. The gunplay in this game felt smooth and responsive, and I thought the level designs themselves were really good. It felt a lot like an older shooter, which isn't something that I think I could get into for very long, especially with the save system they opted for in this game. One of the main ways to save your progress is through an item called a soul shard. You could find these lying around, but if you don't have one with you when you want to save, then you can't save. It's an obvious calculated risk mechanic, but I think it adds more to frustration than any actual fun. Besides that perceived flaw, I'd say objectively this game is great. I would recommend it to anyone who loves old-school shooters or something very fast-paced. I did have fun with what I played, but I'm sure that if I spent much longer with it, then it would wear out its welcome. The next game is Timelie, which is labeled as a stealth puzzle adventure game. You play as a girl traversing through a very abstract world, evading robots to get to the end of each level, signified by a white door. The story itself seemed very vague, and it didn't seem like there was much to it, so you're definitely playing this for its gameplay. Timelie, as the name suggests, features time manipulation as its main mechanic. The player can scrub through a timeline to change events, so it allows the player to react to things right when they need to, like moving their character at opportune times or interacting with switches to open up doors. As you progress, the levels get more complicated, requiring the player to think about each move and plan accordingly on how to proceed through each level. Eventually, you'll come across and help a cute orange cat that becomes your companion as well as acting as another controllable character. The cat can move through spaces the girl can't and attract the robot's attention, which adds another layer to the puzzle solving. I really liked how at the end of each level it showed what happened in your perfect timeline where the girl made it to the white door. Made me feel like I knew what I was doing, even if I did mess up a lot. This was a pretty fun game, and I could see myself returning to this one just for something different from what I usually play. Simple Rockets 2 is a space simulator that lets you build rockets, rovers, and planes all for the sake of traveling to other planets and exploring the solar system. Obviously, a lot of people will compare this game to Kerbal Space Program since they are both very similar. I played KSP before this, and actually really liked the game despite not being that great at it. I only ever landed on Minmus and the Moon, which to those who don't know are basically the starter celestial bodies to travel to. So is this game better than Kerbal Space Program? Well, I can't say for sure, but I did think that it had some nice changes that KSP doesn't have as far as I'm aware. Procedural parts when building rockets were really nice, and I think makes rocket creation a bit easier. The nav ball was something else that was different, and controlling the rockets was way easier than flying in KSP. Creating burn nodes to create flight paths or orbits was made really easy with the addition of allowing the craft to auto-initiate the burn, and then cut itself off to reduce the waste of fuel. There also seems to be more customization for parts, and even a whole editor to design your own star system. I think this would be a great alternative for fans of KSP, especially while waiting for the sequel. But if you're anything like me, then you're going to need someone like Scott Manley giving you a beginner's tutorial series just to learn how to play. The next title is Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, which is a cute top-down adventure game similar to something like Legend of Zelda. You play as Turnip Boy, and you failed to pay your taxes because you probably just ripped them up. So now you have to work your debt off with the mayor by doing a bunch of errands. The game is largely cute and humorous, with everything seeming to be very lighthearted. Turnip Boy himself is rather innocent enough, but also a bit of a jerk, only in the same sense that you'd view Dennis the Menace a jerk. I thought the gameplay here was a lot of fun. Each dungeon had its own puzzles and bosses. I didn't think anything was too difficult, and even if you died, then you would respawn pretty close, so you could try again. Apparently there are different endings to the game, and judging from some of the messages you read, there seems to be post-game content as well. Turnip Boy is a very cute game that I would return to finish at some point. It's actually very short too, clocking in at around 2 hours according to how long to beat, which would be perfect for a lazy Sunday afternoon or something. Bullets Per Minute is a rhythm-based, roguelike, first-person shooter, melding old-school shooter vibes to the beat of a metal soundtrack. It's a weird combination, but it's essentially what you'd expect from the style of game it is. Your actions need to be in tune to the beats of the music. If you're offbeat, then you can't shoot or dodge. There is a wide variety of enemies throughout each room that requires the player to constantly bob and weave if they want to stay alive. Bottom line, I like the soundtrack, but I didn't really care for the game. I'm usually horrible at these games, so this was kind of frustrating for me. I think through constant repetition I was getting better, but I don't think I have the patience to get to that point. That being said, most of the footage you see here was actually captured by my wife. She, on the other hand, likes rhythm games, and she was a lot better at this game, managing to complete a run. On practice difficulty, but that's still by far and away loads better than me. She said it reminded her of Crypta the Necrodancer, and also praised it for not feeling quite like a shooter. Normally, shooters aren't her forte, but she found Bullets Per Minute to be easier in that respect, since keeping the beat felt more important than having excellent aiming and reaction skills. So, I won't be coming back to this one, but I'm sure she will. If you're a fan of Crypta the Necrodancer or other similar titles, then you probably will like this one as well. Wingspan is a digital adaptation of the popular bird collecting board game. I never played the physical board game, but I did own this digital version of the game before this bundle. I can say that it's a great game, especially when playing with friends. Throughout the game you collect bird cards that you could play to different habitats at the cost of various types of food and eggs. Each bird can net you at different point values or offer a special ability that you could use to create an effective strategy. Strategizing the style of play you want to do for a particular match is what makes this game really fun. Trying to maximize a certain resource output or collecting more birds or whatever works for the objectives. Because throughout a game there are bonus objectives to work towards that provide point values depending on who ranked higher. This is an all-around fun game with some competitiveness, but ultimately is a very calm game to play. I think it's great to relax to, and the designers did an excellent job with the artwork and sound design to convey this feeling.
Purple gallinule. With its long toes, this bird can walk on lily pads without sinking.
I obviously will keep playing this game in the future. I'd say this one should definitely at least be given a try before writing it off completely, especially if you think you won't like it because you don't play board games. Project Wingman is a combat flight simulator that takes place in some post-apocalyptic future. An earth-changing calamity affected everything, changing the landscape and of course toppling existing governments. Eventually, humanity picks up the pieces and things move on. The player is a member of an elite mercenary group known as Sicario, and conducts missions for whoever has a good offer. The gameplay seems pretty standard for a flight simulator, I think. I don't play these games because I'm always put off by all the different controls and settings, of which you can customize a lot of them. Actually, I did like that they allowed for a more arcadey control setup because I don't think I could play this game otherwise. There's also a VR mode as well, which would probably be pretty cool if I didn't think I'd get nauseous from the way I was flying. The biggest thing I didn't like about this one was there are no checkpoints in the levels, so if you die stupidly, like crashing into a jet that you just took out, then you're screwed, even if you've already been playing the same mission for the last half hour. Overall, I thought this game was decent for the kind of game it is. I can't really say for sure since I'm unfamiliar with the genre, however, I can say I won't be returning to this one myself. House Flipper is another simulation game, but this time you play as a person who does house renovation and remodeling. Normally, I wouldn't even give this game the time of day, but surprisingly, it's rather fun. In the beginning, the player takes contracts to clean out homes, paint rooms, install appliances, etc. This earns the player money they'll presumably use to buy their own properties, fix them up, and then sell them for profit. As you do these different tasks, you'll gain experience to unlock perks, which will make you more effective. I don't really have any real knowledge about installing a lot of these appliances, but I thought it was cool the detail the devs put into the actions, and it made me think about how things are put together in my own home. I'd say chores like this wouldn't normally be seen as something fun, but there was satisfaction in seeing things all come together after cleaning and fixing up a house. I thought this was the perfect game to turn on some tunes and just relax. There are 2 free DLC that I wasn't able to check out, but seem to add in things like apocalypse bunkers and cyberpunk abodes, which sounded pretty cool. I want to keep playing this one, and any who have reservations with this one like I did, then you should still give it a shot. You might be surprised. The final game is Due Process, a tactical shooter that seems to be in the vein of something like Rainbow Six Siege. This is another title that I'm not sure how qualified I am to really talk about its true merits, since I don't play games like this. On paper, it sounds interesting. You need to plan how you and your team will defend or breach a location. The players do this through planning on a map and marking where each member will go and where defenses should be placed. The second part of the planning is deciding what equipment to bring. The players need to choose wisely because the armory holds what everyone will need for 3 rounds before you switch factions and have a new set of gear. So if you choose something that isn't well suited for the map, then you won't be able to use it later when you might need it. To be honest, I felt intimidated with this game and was completely expecting a bunch of other players to get toxic with me. I thought the only way to get really good at this game was to have a really thorough understanding of the maps. However, I found that's not the case. According to their Steam page, they update the maps every week with new procedurally generated challenges to make the game always be centered around the planning aspects. This is a really interesting title, but I can't see myself coming back to this game unless I was playing with someone that I know. Or maybe if I actually spent some time watching videos about it. I'd try this one out though if you're a fan of Siege or any other breach and clear style of games. Okay, so we reached the end of the video, so let's wrap this up and see if this bundle is worth it or not. I based my rating solely on whether I thought the game was worth playing on about an hour or so of hands-on gameplay. Overall, this bundle was tough to say whether or not it was good or bad. I think objectively, most of the games in the bundle are decent games. However, most of them didn't really jive that well with me. I think the problem with this bundle is that probably for most people, only one game will resonate with them, which I don't think makes this bundle worth it. Also, Humble had stated that they reduced the number of games this month to 10 instead of 12 because they felt the games were of a higher quality this month, and I don't feel that's the case. None of them felt amazingly better than anything that has come before, and with 3 of these games being early access titles, it seems a bit weird to say that. Obviously, early access can be made with quality in mind, but I think it's a little hard to judge that at the moment when they're not even finished yet. Anyway, my top recommendations for this month are House Flipper and Wingspan. House Flipper was such a surprise for me. Who knew that fixing up houses and doing menial chores could be so relaxing and fun? Wingspan has been something that I've already put in countless hours and greatly enjoy for its relaxing nature too, as well as being a nice card building strategy game. Timelie and Turnip are my next 2 recommendations that I feel I could recommend to almost anyone. Timelie's clever puzzle mechanics made it something that could be a brain teaser, but since I could control time at my own pace, I never felt like I was pressured by the game. Turnip is just a cute game that has a clear identity. I think most people would enjoy its lightheartedness, as well as the fact that it could be completed with hardly any time investment. Following those, I run into an issue here. I didn't think that these games were bad, but just that I'm not sure if I would come back to them again because they weren't really for me. However, I'd recommend them to people only if they were looking for that particular itch. These games being Wrath, Aeon, Ruin, Simple Rockets 2, Bullets Per Minute, Project Wingman, and Due Process. With Wrath, Aeon, Ruin, I actually did have fun with this game, but I knew it probably wasn't going to be something that I could play for a long time. Maybe if I had the game at the easiest difficulty, I could get over the save system. Simple Rockets 2 seems like it had some nice changes from Kerbal Space Program, but I'm not sure I'm ready to try and learn how to play another game like this all over again. As for Bullets Per Minute, I didn't care for it, but my wife loved it, so obviously it does come down to if you're a fan of rhythm games or not. Project Wingman seemed like a very solid combat flight simulator, but I think I like something a bit faster paced than what was offered here. Finally, Due Process seemed like a great tactical shooter, especially with the planning phases, but that kinda scares noobs like me away from it. I think if you have a friend to play this with, then I imagine you'll have a bunch of fun with it. The only game I wouldn't bother with this month is Mobius Front 83. The beginning of the game felt too slow and didn't really sell itself for me to want to keep playing. Perhaps it gets a lot better, but personally, I don't have the time to find out. Anyway, these were my thoughts on this month's bundle. What games, if any, are you looking forward to playing? Let me know what your thoughts are, or if there are any different recommendations you'd make in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some way, and if it did, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.